Oh my gosh, you guys. Today it's marketing, branding, and podcasts. Oh my. So, have you thought of a name for your podcast? Maybe you even bought a fancy mic and maybe even recorded your first episode. But now what? How do you brand that? How are you supposed to market that podcast? Maybe you're tinkering with the idea of starting a podcast. I know that I was talking to Brandon before the show, and I have actually been thinking about one for a few months, but it's just not the right time for me. Is it the right time for you to launch your podcast? And how do you what's the ROI for having a podcast? I think it all starts with the branding and marketing, right? Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Fane Brandt of the LinkedIn Bakery. I'm the Chief Inspiration Officer and Chief Connector over there. And this is bite-sized tips for busy entrepreneurs. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, real quick, you guys, will you go ahead and share this out with your platforms? I'm getting a couple little error messages about live streaming. So I'm hoping that we're live on LinkedIn. Let me know. I'm going to check the comments because when I started a broadcast, it gave me an error message that I wasn't authorized to stream on LinkedIn. I'm like, what? I've had this for over a year. So you guys go ahead and hit that share button below. Start a watch party because we want to bring you the top tips to make your business successful, soar, and scale in 2020. Today's guest is Brandon Birkmeyer of Brandon's Brand. Yeah, say that 3 times fast. You know what? Brandon has worked with some of the biggest names like Walmart, Jack in the Box, Apple, and Coca-Cola. I mean, those are really big names. He's got over 17 years experience in the marketing and branding arena there. And today, this is what Brandon's going to be sharing with our audience. How to craft your first marketing strategy. You guys, it's more than just posting on social media. You actually need to have a strategy and know what the call to action is and what is the ROI that you want for that marketing strategy. We're going to talk about the simple framework for building brands that matter, so important in 2020, and why podcasting is your best kept secret. So let's bring Brandon onto the show and give him a big welcome.
Hello.
Brandon, welcome. So I was getting some error messages. It's technology.
It is. I checked this out too. We're live on LinkedIn right now for sure.
Perfect. I got an error message at the beginning saying you're not authorized to stream live. And I'm like, I've been authorized for over a year. I'm a beta tester. What are you talking about? And then my Facebook page got an error message on my personal page. So that's fine. It looks like we're broadcasting live on YouTube, LinkedIn, my Facebook page, and the Facebook group. So
that's great.
Gotta love technology, right?
Hey, if that's the smallest problem we have today, then we're doing well.
Right? Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. And, before we do your introduction, I do want to address the elephant in the room. We discussed yesterday whether we were going to do this show. I struggled with it. Do I move forward and serve my audience, right? Because we promote this, and I know there's people watching like Laura and let me see, DC Brands, Jatan, Vivica. Hello, Vivica, Angela. We have quite a few people already joining us. And the struggle yesterday, Brandon and I were messaging each other back and forth. I'm like, do we do the show? Are we being selfish if we do that? Are we supposed to black out? Do we cancel all of our social media posts? And I'm very aware of the situation. I don't know what it feels like being Black. I'm a white girl with blonde hair, right? Here I am. So I don't know what that feels like, but I have a lot of friends. And a good friend in college said, Mayor, a Black gentleman friend of mine, he's like, you don't know what it's like to get in your car every day wondering if today's the day you get pulled over and harassed. I don't have to go through that. And I can't imagine what that feels like to feel that way every day. And the discussion Brandon and I were having were, can we do the show still with everything going on? And I talked to quite a few people and they said, you have to do what's right for you and your audience. Right, Brandon?
Yeah, I think it's intention, right? At the end of the day, you're here to serve. And, I worked at ad agencies for 18 years and they had to make the decision, something slightly different, which was, do we market the things that we're trying to sell? And you know what, for them, turning things off when something this impactful is happening is a good idea, because right now is not the time to preach and
Right.
sell. It's the time to listen and to have conversations. So I think there's a difference between selling when people are when
Thank you.
are thinking something else versus trying to be a part of the
Educate.
conversation.
And
And
yeah, and we're just really trying to provide value to our audiences and to help them with their businesses. I serve the entrepreneur and small business community. Um, and so I did struggle with it, and I just wanted to bring that up. But I am not selling anything here. I'm simply providing a service and hoping that we inspire people today that you can still market during the pandemic and the riots and the protests. But how do we do that? And I think, Brandon, you're going to touch a little bit on that because you have 17 years experience with some really big names. So I'm so honored to have you here and
happy to
so
be here.
thankful. And Brandon, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about your background and how you launched off on your own?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is pretty humble beginnings. I grew up in Los Angeles, single mom since I was 2 years old, just us two kind of coming up together. So I kept a very kind of took the safe route, and just because I didn't want to struggle like we did growing up. So I ended up studying marketing, getting into college, and stayed on the same road for 18 years, if you'll believe it. Like, got into an ad agency job, very, like entry level work, and then never changed job for 18 years. And I'd say it comes from a place of fear. When you don't have a lot growing up, you're like, I will take the safest road possible, so that I don't struggle. And with that, I got a lot of opportunity. I got to work at ad agencies on huge accounts and gain a lot of experience. And then after 18 years of doing that, and working on brands like Coca-Cola and Walmart and Apple, which I was blessed to work on, uh, I actually I kind of ran into this wall where I started to see people that were 5 years, 10 years ahead of me in their jobs, in the same jobs that I was in, my mentors, my peers, starting to have trouble finding work and getting laid off, or becoming freelancers because they had no other option. And I saw that as my future. So the playing it safe route for me, that fear got overtaken by the fear ahead of me, which was, I'm not going to have any opportunities if I don't find something for myself. And that's what got me down this road. So the past 2 years, I've branched off on my own, started working independently, directly with small businesses and entrepreneurs. And along that road, which we can get into, I started to realize that I needed, like, all those times in corporate, I didn't have a voice. And for me to actually step out on my own, I had to develop my own voice. I had to find what I stand for and work on my message. And it's something they don't teach you. So me getting out there and learning how to do that is now the kind of thing I'm passionate about, and I want to help other people with. So I help people in that space right now, and
I
it's
love that. And I love that, you come from corporate background, so you know what it takes, and you've seen, how the big brands do it. And now you've decided to serve the smaller brands, the small business owners, and to help them. And so we're in the same space of serving our entrepreneurs and small business owners. Vivica says, loyalty and a bed of hustle and gritty. Hashtag Brandon Burkmeyer. Hey, Vivica, thank you so much.
thanks.
Vivica is another LinkedIn trainer in San Diego, but she caters to attorneys and lawyers. So we're a great referral source for each other, because that is not my ideal client, right? So, Brandon, we have a couple of topics to talk about. The first one is how to craft your first marketing strategy. And I know when I first started, I just posted on social media, no strategy. And I did that for quite some time. What are like the 3 tips that you can give our audience on creating and how to have that first marketing strategy?
Yeah. So the first marketing strategy to me is about priorities. And what I think what happens a lot of time is, you can ask any entrepreneur out there. And I realized this when I started to try to help small business owners, is they've 2 things in short supply. One is time and one is money. And without those 2 things, it's really hard to do marketing. So figuring out your priorities and when you're going to either have the time or the money to do this is step one. And for a lot of people, the easiest way to do that is to set aside, like, okay, I'm going to take this in bites, right? So I'm going to set up projects and say, what is the first project I need to work on? And that project could be anything, depending on like where you're at in your business, what you've done already. It might be for you, you actually might need your website rebuilt so that it's converting better for you. Or you might have been dabbling with Facebook ads, but are ready to actually
Are you in my
advertise.
head?
Yeah, you might have to get out there and do it to more work on more people. And someone else, it might be like, I need to work on my organic social posting. I need to like put more content out there. For a lot of people, it's different, but picking one thing to do
I like that.
is critical.
I think what happens as an entrepreneur, small business owner, we know that we need to do the website, we need to do LinkedIn, we need to do Facebook ads, work on our talks and maybe a podcast or a live show. There is so much to do. And I know in the past, I've started a project and not finished it. Right. So it's important to know maybe like what are the 3 big marketing projects that you want to tackle for the year?
Yeah, no, exactly. And for me, it's a lot of the time, it's kind of like who you ask is going to determine the answer you get.
I know.
Right. If you talk to someone who's a specialist in search engine optimization, they're going to tell you you need it to redo your search engine optimization. So if you talk to someone who's in Facebook ads, they're going to say you need Facebook ads and so on and so forth.
Right.
So sometimes you might need to figure out who can you talk to that's going to help you. And that might be someone in your space who is successful, who might be a further than you are and saying, what did you do? Like, what can I learn from
Yeah.
you? Like that might help me. Or you might have to talk to someone whose their specialty is consulting. They come
Yeah.
up with looking at your business and say like based on where you're at, this would be what I would do next. That should be a priority that's going to give you the most like sales right now.
I
Uh,
love it.
so
I love
figuring
it.
out
Yeah,
where
I,
you
I have
are.
a few people I go to, and then annually I do exercise. Felina Hansen at Hair Hub does it's like a 4-day or 4-hour intensive. And you go through what your next year is going to look like, and every month what your actions are, and that's really helped me. I have my big post-it note over here, and I accomplished a couple of things on it. So that's good. There's still a lot to do. So Vivica says, love this, Brandon. Boils down to the intersection of what is right aligned for us and our niched narrow audience. And AM Mahmad said, I am thinking to start a podcast soon. Well, stay tuned because we're going to dive into podcast stuff a little bit later. So what I'm hearing for marketing is first decide, what you're going to tackle first. Don't tackle it all at once. Don't decide you're going to do a rebrand. You're going to go live on LinkedIn, and you're going to do Facebook ads, right? Like that's probably spreading yourself too thin. And resources. You said exactly what I always say to people when they say, Mary, we should do this or we should do that. I'm like, resources, time and money, they're limited.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I mean, I was working with a real estate agent. He's been paying someone $5,000 a month to manage his Instagram, which
What?
is crazy. But I know, like, I need a client like that. But at the end of the day, he was like, I don't have time. I'll outsource this to someone who seems like they have a credible, background. I'm sure they did what they got paid for. But at the end of the day, if no one's following him,
Mm-hmm.
what are you paying for? You're paying for like 3 people to see beautiful posts. So I'm like, no one sat down with him and said, this is what you should do next. This is what your strategy should be. So when we got together,
Strategy.
yeah, it's like, you work in real estate, your bread and butter is networking, but you have no CRM, you have no email management system set
Yeah.
up. You don't have a regular recurring way to communicate with people you've already come into contact with. You don't even know out of all the people on your list who's ready to buy, who's not. So like figuring out where they
And
are in the
is
system.
Instagram the platform he should be on, or is email marketing better? So it's really knowing where your audience is and where you're going to get the ROI,
Right.
right? So I know that my audience is on LinkedIn and Facebook. Those are I post on Instagram, but I'm not active over there. When people message me, I'm always like, oops. And I say that publicly. I am not active on Instagram. I still have trouble like sharing the stories. People will tag me and I'm like, all I can do is hit share to story. That's all I can do on Instagram. It's not my platform. So it's really important to know where your audience is. What method of marketing is going to work? Is that email marketing? Is it ads? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? And deciding what you're going to focus your marketing on. Do you advise people like to market by quarter? Like first quarter, we're going to launch a course. Second quarter, we're going to focus on our done for you services. Like what's your advice for that?
Yeah, that's tough. I don't think of it. It depends on the business because some
Okay.
businesses do work in seasons. like a restaurant business might have a terrible winter but a good summer. So but I'd say timing is part of like your planning parameters. So you have to figure out like,
Okay.
do I have a budget for this? Who is my
Right.
audience? What is the timing I'm looking at for a campaign? All that stuff is part of your planning. Uh, but to take it a step back a little bit, the I think the easiest thing to do is to sit back and say, okay, uh, am I taking care of the things that are closest to my business right now? A lot of people want to start with, I need new eyeballs, I need new customers. I say start with, are you doing the things that are closest to your business in terms of closest to your sale? In other words, like with that guy, or even with the restaurant, like, are you taking care of the people that are already coming in? Are they happy with the service they're getting provided? Are they referring you to other people? Do you have a system with it? Have you given them something to share with other people? And are they coming back for more? Are they buying more often? Are they buying more? Do you have like can you upsell them to more, more products?
Upsell. Yeah.
Which is more like, can you serve them better? Are there more things that
Right.
they need? But at the end of the day, are you starting there, and like, has that process been figured out? Because I don't want to drive a ton more people into your system if your system is broken. It's basically
Mm.
filling a leaky bucket with more water.
So I think the first thing is to make sure your system can handle more business,
Right.
like your processes, your automation, your onboarding, your inventory. If you're a product based business, are you ready for more business, right?
Yeah. And are you serving your customers the way they want to be served?
Ah, so key. I love that. Um, So the marketing strategy, know what you want to market for the year, break that down. It could be by seasons if that's the type of business. Are you ready to take on more business? Why have a marketing plan go full force and then not be able to serve your customers, whether it's with inventory, services, bookings, whatever it is, your course is not done, whatever that might be. We want to make sure that we're ready to serve the clients that we get from that marketing strategy. Otherwise, that'd be an epic fail, right?
Yeah, and I'd say it's a lot of us, like, once we built the plan, we want to set it and forget it. But especially at times like this, when there's
Yeah.
pandemics and there's so much going on in our culture right now, I think you have to say, like, you do have to pause sometimes and say, is there something that my customer needs right now that I should be providing them? Whatever that is, whether it's, a different way to communicate, or it's actually how you serve them, a different product, a discount, a different way to pay, whatever the thing is, like figuring out what is it that, if I want to continue for the next 3 months, what does my customer need right now that's going to help them the most? And I think a lot of people, they're thinking I have to fully pivot, like restaurants. They're like,
Right.
I'm gonna great, I'm gonna help people just take out or deliver right now. Perfect, but that, like, don't fully shift to that being your business model, because in 6 months it might change again and people are going to start coming back to restaurants. But you do need to figure out, like, for right now, what do they need from me? They need to feel safe that this food is clean, that I'm using the
Right.
right vendors, that
So
I'm
you've
not
got
get
to market that to your audience.
you got to let them know that you're here to serve them, and ask them, like, hey,
Yeah.
if I did this, would that help you, or is there something else that I'm missing?
I like that. I like that. So Vivica says, I'm going to put it on huge listening ears always. You're right. We have to listen to our clients and our colleagues. I think listening to our colleagues and understanding what's going on in their space, is also helpful in your marketing plan. So let's talk about, what is the simple framework? Is there a simple framework for building brands that matter? Explain that to us. What do you mean
Yeah,
by that?
yeah. Well, it's funny, is it's something I've, like, coming from marketing. I realize that there's a lot of ways to just put a message out there and to share your story, but at the end of the day, it's not like, if you're trying to figure out how do you keep a customer around, how do you keep a loyal customer, it's a tough business because there's so many competitors. We all seem this like the same. Most people expect that if they're shopping for something, a product, a service, that the 5, 6 things that they find have all passed the quality test. So for them, they're trying to figure out how to find the thing that's for them. And most people, the survey was out there, it was like 70+% of people wouldn't care if brands disappeared tomorrow. So because they just find something else to buy. And so at the end of the day, it creates this question of, like, if I want to be around tomorrow and I don't want to be driven out of the business by price or something like that, how do I find customers that will stay, that are loyal? And the only measurable thing they found, the only measurable thing that keeps a customer loyal, was what they call a shared meaningful experience. And what that means is, you get out there and you create something where the people has some kind of, there's some emotional engagement with you and your brand and your product and your service. So at the end of the day, how do you create experiences that keep people wanting to come back, that tie them to you, that say, I'm not going to get this anywhere else because this was a very unique connection and bond. And that kind of thing for me is about building brands that matters. At the end of the day, asking, how do you have customers say, I care, and it's because you care about them first. So for me, it's how do you build a brand that matters? How do you build something that people actually care about, that they support you as a business and they preach you to the mountains that this is what you should buy? And that's how you build a brand that matters, is you have to sit there and say, I'm here to serve and I'm here to find something that people actually care about, not just sell to the lowest bidder.
I like it. So creating a brand that matters, I wrote that as a pro tip, is to create the shared meaningful experience. And if you're product based, there's different ways to do that, or a brick and mortar, going to the location, right? Creating that meaningful experience for your customers as soon as they walk through the door. And then for service providers, a lot of my audience, they're coaches, consultants, speakers. Creating that meaningful experience, I think, is about making it personal to your clients.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think of.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that always rings in my head is when people say you do the things that don't scale. I think in service businesses, that's especially true. You finding time to have one-on-one connection, maybe not with everybody every day, but finding that, for you, whatever time you can carve out that keeps those 5 or 10 people, like having still one-on-one conversations with some of the people you serve consistently as part of your business plan works, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to be saying, oh my God, this person, like I'm in
high
love
fives.
with this person.
They're gonna be the ones that are brand ambassadors for you.
Right.
And so back in, I think, August of last year, when we were still seeing people, I launched a IRL campaign in real life. And I reached out to people in my LinkedIn network that we had connected on LinkedIn, maybe on Facebook, but we'd never met in person. And they were so obviously all in San Diego, and I had met them for coffee or lunch, and I was doing 2 a month. And then I was posting about it, to encourage other people, right, to make it personal and take your online connections offline. So Viveka Hess is someone that we had briefly met at a conference. Like, I think we sat next to each other, but I didn't know her. I didn't know I knew she did LinkedIn, but I didn't know anything else. So we met for coffee and, just collaborated and talked and decided, I'll refer people to her for her niche and vice versa. So it's all about creating that personal experience, making it personal, reaching out to people in your network, even if they're not a client, I think.
Yeah, and I think what I like to say is you have to build some kind of brand for you. Your reputation is your brand. So I think that there's a model for that if you want to have a service-based business, your reputation is important. And I think the way to do that, my framework for personal branding, is it's 3 simple steps. It's your message. It's your message, your community, and what I call impact. And it basically explained is, first off, you have to have a message. In other words, you have to find your voice, which is why I'm big on podcasting. You have to have something that you stand for, that you're known for, that people are like, this is why I go to Brandon. This is why I go to Mary. Something that people are like, this is what they're all about. When you have that, it attracts people to you, or it repels them from you. They're either for you or not for you.
Right.
Because you are known for something.
Right.
The next piece, a community piece, is you have to then bring those people together so that they can interact with each other and that you can engage with them, which is what we're talking about right now. The reason you have to do things that don't scale is because you are now getting answers from them. You are asking them, hey, now that you're part of this community, you've come in, you're talking, I can ask you questions like, what is important to you right now? I love that you're loving my service. What do you love about it? Beyond that, what else? What are you struggling with? What can I help you with? And guess what? Today and yesterday, you might get a different answer than you got 2 weeks ago. So that's the community piece of it. That's the power of community, is that you can have conversations every day about what's going on in their world right now, and then you can serve them and come up with solutions. That's the community piece of it. And guess what? When you start to ask them what you can help them with, and you start helping them with it, that's the impact piece. That's part 3. Because if you're not actually helping people solve their problems, you're not having impact in their business, they're going to move on to somewhere else. You might be interesting and fun to listen to, but they're going to move on to somewhere else because you never actually helped them with something.
Yeah.
That's the model.
You've got to solve the problem for your clients.
Yeah.
I love that. So that was really insightful. Thank you, Brandon. So I'm looking at comments on Facebook and LinkedIn. We got a couple people over on both, a few people watching us. Vivica said, yep, I'm a 90-day gal for big goals, but monthly on smaller sub goals. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm all about setting goals because, and then writing them down and having an action plan to reach them, because having a goal is just having a dream unless you put a plan behind it.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of content marketing right now. I'm like studying the science behind how do you like
Ooh,
create something and then push it out to a bunch of places.
okay.
And for me, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have some kind of design, it's going to be random. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like you recording something amazing like this and then posting it in three places, it's all this work and none of the reward. So figuring out like and designing like what's your workflow to create that and make it go as far as possible is important.
That's called my virtual assistant.
It's a plan.
Repurpose, put those quotes out, and working on the YouTube channel later this year. Billy, if you're watching, I promise you, we're going to start developing that YouTube channel in quarter 3, I think.
There you go.
Okay, so let's talk about podcasting and why is it the best kept secret? How do you get started? Should everybody have a podcast? And first, before we go there, tell me your 2 favorite podcasts besides yours.
Oh, that's good. I love that. On the spot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. It's how
Yep,
I learn. Uh,
me too.
when I left corporate, I was looking for things like how to be better at networking, how to be more
Mhm.
charming, like whatever those things, because I felt like weak in those categories. So the one I stumbled across was Jordan Harbinger. He had like the psychology of
Oh,
it's called the Art of Charm, which now he has his own show called Jordan Harbinger, the Jordan Harbinger Show. So that is always amazing, like psychological insights into people. And then in that same vein, there was a mentor now of mine and a friend of mine. His name is Travis Chappell. He actually coached me on podcasting. He
yeah.
has a show called Build Your Network, and now a new show called World Class. And yeah, it's still two of my favorites to listen to.
I'm trying to put some in the comments, but afterwards, I'd love for you to go in and put links or something.
Totally.
Um, Fabulous. Okay, so besides your podcast, so tell us, should everyone have a podcast? Does it matter what business? I'm just starting off. Like, give me 3 tips of how to decide if you should start a podcast. Let's start with that.
Yeah, what's funny is this is what I think is very, and I'll ask you a question too, Mary, if you'll join me.
Sure.
What I'll say is like, if I asked you, is it important to have a voice, especially right now? What would you say?
Yes,
And why is that?
because I have an important message to share and I have an audience that needs me. And I'm not patting myself on my back, but
Right.
I've helped people through struggles. I've helped them scale their business. I've helped them find their own voice. Like for me, when I'm coaching someone in my career coaching business, and we go through the exercises, and what is a byproduct of my coaching is that they all have an increased confidence. They're ready to go find that new job and sell themselves, because selling ourselves is hard to do.
Right. And guess what? And that's especially when you have something you want to like teach or help people with, it's important to have that. But even for things that are just your opinions, at the end of the day, like think about what we do when we go to like a scary movie, right? When something happens on screen that that shocks you or you don't want to see, like what do? Right?
I, yeah, I was like, I cover. So I always ask my husband, is it over? Is
Right.
the knife out of the body?
Yeah, you look away, right? But here's what's weird and true about that is that we do that a lot. When we
Mm,
things make us uncomfortable, we look away.
like right now,
We pull away.
a lot of people are pulling away.
And when we see something on the streets that's uncomfortable, you see someone with a sign at the end of the
Yeah.
freeway, you don't want to look at them. You like just try to stay
You
in
don't
your
want to have
world.
eye contact because then it's real and you should address
Right.
it.
And you start
Yeah.
to feel something. You start to feel something in your
Mm,
core. If you look at someone who's struggling and they're crying and they're talking about something that's important to them, if you look at them in the face, you can't help but feel with them and empathize. We're trained to like our bodies are instinctually programmed to do that. So when we don't want to do that, when we don't want to feel it, when we're afraid of feeling it, we look away.
I got it. Yeah.
Right? And that's why so many of us feel alone, right? Is we don't have other people there that are like, I see you, I hear you.
Yeah.
And so I bring this back to podcasting, right? At the end of the day, I think everyone needs a voice. Everyone should be sharing how they feel because when everything around you is saying something, when everyone around you is speaking and sharing their message, you can't help but hear. It's too loud. So what I would say is if you're someone who's just out there in your everyday, find more places where you can listen, find more places where you can not look away, where you can see exactly what's happening and actually look closer and see what's actually happening in your world and your business. When you can do that, you'll see it becomes very obvious why you should also be sharing your voice. And I know that's bigger than podcasting, but for me,
Yeah.
the it's was the easiest way for me to do that for myself. I felt like in a corporate world, I had no voice, I had
Mm,
no opinion that wasn't my own. So I tried lots of things, but podcasting came very natural to me because the most natural thing we've always done in society is have conversations.
right.
It's talk. Like writing is not always easy. Setting up cameras and looking at
It's
the
not
right
always
spot.
easy.
It's the lighting,
Lighting, mics, is your guest going to show up? Just kidding. Uh,
yeah.
laptops. Yeah.
So
I
your
think
voice is
that I
important.
love podcasts because I can listen to them when I'm walking. So I feel really productive because I'm exercising and I'm educating myself.
Right.
Right. So I think there's a lot of value in podcasts. So, we're wrapping up. We're out of time, actually. Give someone, I want to start a podcast. Give me 3 tips.
Yeah. My tips are at the end of the day, like figure out like you don't find clarity through thinking. You don't find clarity through like strategy. It's through engagement. It's through action. And Marie Forleo is
Absolutely.
famous for saying stuff like that. And that's what I love about her is she's an action oriented person. But yeah, you have to actually start using your voice. If you want to find your voice, you have to use your voice.
So
And
don't be afraid to use your voice because you actually have to discover your voice and to figure out what platform you want to stand on, like what soapbox.
yeah, exactly. So by using it, you'll start to realize there's themes, there's things you say over and over again that start to become what your message is. You may not know it to begin with.
Fabulous.
There you go. Use your voice all the time.
Fun and informative. It's fabulous. You're fabulous. You're a rock star. My
Right.
voice is I always say I'm fun and informative, casual and conversational.
Yeah, and I kept finding myself saying, "God, people need to build brands that matter." I was just like, you need to matter to someone. Like, I don't want to buy your stuff if I don't care about you." Like it kept coming up over and over and over again, and I think it's to myself too. I was like, I want to matter. I want to matter to someone, even if it's just one person. And so, how do
Right.
I help them? How do I matter? Well, I have to help them. I have to find some way to be a part of their life and have an experience with them. So, it all ties back to that. If you're just getting started, find your voice, use your voice to find your voice. And you don't like the gear and all that stuff, you'll figure out like a simple mic for like $70 is all
Maybe
you
after
need.
the show, you could throw some links in for the people. We do have a question about podcasts. Is it
Sure.
better to do podcasts solo or get a guest to talk to?
Always both. Because it is. Well, for me, if a guest is great because you have a collision of ideas. I heard that from John Lee Dumas. I had him on my
Oh, I like
show.
that. A collision of ideas.
Yeah, I'm stealing that from him. And it's because when you have two people together, you have a conversation, you are creating something new and you're sharing opinions. It's great to be shouting to the mountains, but if you're not engaging with someone else, new ideas can't come to bear. So I love that part of it. But also I think you can't be afraid of sharing just your message because we all have a lot inside of us that we want to say and share. And if you don't, then you're never going to have that first piece of that pyramid, which I told you about, which is finding your message, what you're known for. If you don't share what you're about, you're not going to be known for anything.
I love it. I love it. So I'm sure some people are going to be reaching out to you after the show. Brandon and I promise to go back in and answer your questions. He'll answer the questions and comment, engage with you guys on whatever platform that that you are on, because we are broadcasting to 3 platforms. Brandon, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yep, easily. If you go to any podcasting platform, it's brands on brands on brands. You just type it in. I said it
Brands
three
on
times.
brands on brands.
3 times helps you remember, hopefully. My name's
Okay.
Brandon. So my website's brandonbrands.com. All my links are there.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Brandon, for joining us. And you guys, I just really hope. Normally, I have a call to action at the end, but I'm not even going to do that today. My call to action is if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel and share this out and keep engaging with people, especially right now. I'd love for you all to go and connect with Brandon over on LinkedIn. I have a great network of savvy business professionals. Let's all circle around each other, support each other, lift each other up. And for LinkedIn, the best way that you can support a small business owner right now is to engage on their posts, engage, like write a comment about it, share a post that they put out, or write them a recommendation. And if you don't know their services, jump on a call and see if you can get enough information and feel comfortable. I always want you to feel comfortable about writing a recommendation, but those are 3 free ways that you can support small businesses right now during the turmoil that our country is going through. So, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. Man, we could probably talk for an hour, but I promise to have this like a 30-minute show. Have a 5 minutes going over is perfect, but maybe we'll do another one and just circle around like podcasting or just branding or marketing. Like we'll talk in a week or 2 and see if we should come back and really dive into one of those topics specifically, because you're a great guest. I love having you. You have so much experience and knowledge that I know that you're going to be quite valuable to myself and my network here.
Oh, I love it. Anytime. And that's why I got 120 episodes of podcasts that you can listen to. I can't stop
Okay, so
talking.
I'm obviously going to have to go subscribe to your podcast now, and I will listen to you when I walk this weekend.
I love it.
Okay, everyone, take care. This is Mary Fane Brandt with Bite-Sized Tips for Busy Entrepreneurs. Have a great day.